Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. The Premier League season has came to a close, so we're going to take a look at the predictions I've made all the way back at the start of this season and see how I did, whether it was good or bad. And there's not too much good in there, to be honest. It hasn't been a very good set of predictions, but that's why we do them. For any surprises, it's very difficult to guess a lot of teams in the correct positions in the Premier League. You've sort of got an idea of roughly groups where teams will finish in, but to get the place dead on is pretty difficult. The only thing that seemed pretty certain was Man City to win the league. Now, before we get into it, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. There will be some content coming out throughout the summer, mainly on YouTube Shorts to do with transfers, but there will be other stuff coming as the season gets closer. And there's also going to be some closing things, so looking at Brighton, Leicester, some of the teams, that overachieved and underachieved, and really trying to dig into why that happened. So make sure to stay around to check things like that out. Let's get into my predicted table. We'll start off bottom of the league, Southampton. I predicted them to stay up. I thought they'd be 17th. I did say that they were a very young team, that they were investing in the youth, but they'd have a tough season, and then maybe next season they would be able to push on a bit more. That really didn't work out. They have been very poor this season. However, against some of the top sides, I know Chelsea didn't have a very good season, but they managed to beat Chelsea. They got 2 draws against Arsenal. They knocked Man City out of the League Cup. It's the only cup that Man City haven't won yet. They have got the Champions League final coming up. So, Southampton, against some of the top sides, did put in some good performances, but just not good enough as a whole. And that's the reason they were relegated in 20th place. Next up, it's 19th placed Leeds United. Leeds have been relegated. They were all right under Jesse Marsh. They played some decent football, but they just could not pick up results. And football's a results business at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how exciting you are in attack. If you don't get the goals and you don't get the points, you're always going to struggle to survive. Now, I had Leeds in 15th place, so I thought they'd survive along with Southampton. Didn't work out that way. Leeds ended up with Sam Allardyce in for 4 games. Didn't win any of them. He's now left, so they are managerless going into the Championship season. But I'm sure they will be able to bounce back pretty soon. Although a lot of Leeds fans would have thought that last time they were relegated from the Premier League. The big shock, 18th place, Leicester City. They won the Premier League at 5,000 to 1 odds. FA Cup winners just 2 years ago. And now they have lost their Premier League status, relegated in 18th place. I thought they'd be 12th, a bit of a drop-off, but I didn't foresee this, and I'm not too sure that many people would have. But if you look at their squad, there's talent there. They've got Barnes, Tielemans and Maddison, all very good players, way better than a relegation side. But Tielemans is out of contract. Maddison's been linked with a move away for a while. So I've got a feeling this was just players not really playing to their best potential, knowing that if they get relegated, they'll get a move back to the Premier League anyway. Now, I don't think that was the only factor. I think there were other things such as Brendan Rodgers, the goalkeeping department, and the actual investment into the club from the owners. But Leicester City relegated to the Championship, a massive shock. Something I don't think we would have seen coming. In 17th place was Everton, surviving by the skin of their teeth. But where did I put them? I had them 18th, so I was only 1 place off, but that is a pointless 1 place because it's the difference between relegation and survival. I thought they'd go down, even though they never have. I just had a feeling that this season, especially starting the season under Lampard, they would not be good enough. He he was leading them towards relegation, to be honest. But Everton acted sooner than Leicester and Leeds did. Got in Sean Dyche, a very, very smart appointment, and he pulled them to safety just on the final day. They were in the relegation zone because Leicester were winning their match, but Everton just needed a win against Bournemouth. Doucouré's strike made it 1-0 and kept them up. Everton have got a lot of work to do because they shouldn't be in this situation next season, which would be 3 years in a row. But I think it's going to take a lot. And I'm not too convinced that they are going to stay clear of a relegation battle next season. In 16th place, we've got Nottingham Forest. And here's my first correct prediction. I put Nottingham Forest 16th. I believe that they could stay up, even though there were a lot of outs and a lot of ins last summer. Basically a whole new squad. But they did lose a lot of players that were there on loan. And, it's not like they just spent a lot of money without making some first. They did obviously spend more than they made, but every team invests coming up to the Premier League. So, although a lot of people were saying to Nottingham Forest, you have to stay up, you've spent this much, they also lost most of their championship quality in the summer transfer window. So, a good job from Steve Cooper. At some points they looked shaky. Their away form was never good, but at the City ground they did very, very well. Got a few good results in there, beating Liverpool, drawing with Man City, beating Arsenal as well, and they've ended up safe, which was their goal. Now, can they build on that? I think they've got a good chance. They've got some good players there. Morgan Gibbs-White is a brilliant player to build a squad around. He is, he's really lit up the league so far as a young player, and he's outshone Lingard, who similar position. Lingard is now not even playing for the club. He's been released. So Morgan Gibbs-White is a very good player, but they've got plenty. They got Keylor Navas in on a loan from PSG. That was probably the surprise signing of the season. It was very strange, but Forest stay up. Well done to them, and we'll see how they get on next season. Next up, and a surprise just like Leicester were, but for the opposite reasons. Bournemouth finished 15th. What a season. I had them 20th, and I'm pretty sure most people had them relegation zone, but also to finish bottom. Nobody gave Bournemouth a chance at the start of the season, and I can understand why. I did it. I looked at their squad. They didn't make too many improvements, and it just looked like a very underwhelming championship squad to start off with. I didn't know how they were going to have any chance of staying in the Premier League because it doesn't really have the quality. And under Scott Parker, they didn't start well. But Gary O'Neill came in and has done a terrific job. Should have been up for manager of the season. He was terrific for them. He really is the reason they stayed up because he just gave this squad so much belief and they played well above their actual ability to me, although they obviously had it, but they were much better than expected. I think it's going to be a tough season next season, but if anyone can keep them up, I've got faith that Gary O'Neill can beat that man. Bournemouth in 15th. It's going to be and in 14th was West Ham. I had them to finish 8th, and they really, really started poorly. They did manage to pick up their form towards the back end of the season, especially at home, but they had some scares in there. It was a very worrying season for them. However, they stayed in the league, and on the European front, they have managed to get to the Europa Conference League final. A brilliant achievement. They play Fiorentina on Wednesday night. Will they lift that European trophy? If they do, there's a spot in the Europa League for next season. West Ham, very underwhelming season in the league, but they kept their Premier League status, which is the main thing, and they can go again next season. In 13th place, we had Wolves. Now, I had them 9th, so I wasn't really too far off. And if they hadn't had such a poor start to the season, where they were bottom of the league for quite a while, and to be honest, I gave up with them. I thought they were going to really go for relegation, but a very good job from Julian Lopetegui, who came in. The home form was brilliant under him. Away, they were awful. Like, it was complete opposite. But if you're very, very good at home, it doesn't matter how you perform away. You're going to pick up enough points to stay safe. And that's what they did. They got some massive, massive wins in there. They were very good defensively under Lopetegui. And it's going to be interesting to see how they are next season. I'm sure they won't be as bad as they were at the start of this season. But every year, the Premier League quality seems to get stronger and stronger. But I'm not sure I can say the same for next year. Some strange teams are in the league now. Some bigger teams have left. We'll have to wait and see how Wolves get on next season. In 12th place, come Chelsea. Very, very strange season for Chelsea. We will be doing a separate video on where everything went wrong for them. But I predicted them 5th, which I know they're 12th, but no one saw this capitulation coming, and a lot of people had them in the top 4. I snubbed them. I thought they're not going to get top 4. I fancy some other teams ahead of them. So I'm glad that I got that right. To be honest, I think this is a better prediction, guessing them outside the top 4, than me being one place off on Everton, because ultimately Everton got relegated. It was only one place, but that was the difference between staying in the league and being relegated. So for me, it's not an awful prediction. Chelsea were awful though. Graham Potter came in after a tough start for Tuchel, and Potter didn't do as well as expected. He was given a massive, massive contract. He did such a good job at Brighton. Things didn't work out. Chelsea spent loads of money. There was a lot of stuff going on with the ownership, as Abramovich couldn't own the club anymore. He had to sell. Todd Bowley comes in. So much has happened for Chelsea this season. And I think, to be honest, they just needed to hit the reset button, wait till the end of the season, and then try and build something next season. A massive season to forget for Chelsea, but Pochettino has been appointed as the new manager, and I'm sure there will be plenty of spending in the summer. So we'll have to see how Chelsea do next season, but surely it can't be worse than 12th position. 11th place were Palace. I had them 10th, so pretty good prediction. I think Palace normally finished 13th, so I had them a little bit higher than that. I did like their side, what they were building. Eze, Elise, Zaha. Looks like a very deadly attack. And Eze, when he came back from his injury, was brilliant towards the back end of the season. He really, really became the star man in attack for Palace. He got plenty of goals, plenty of contributions. Everything that was good about Palace seemed to go through him. And he's a very good carrier of the ball. So I was very, very happy with his prediction for Palace. It didn't work out for Vieira, although he did have a very tough run of fixtures from New Year's Eve up until when he was sacked. 11 really hard games against teams all above him in the league. Afterwards, Roy Hodgson comes in and gets 6 games in a row against teams below him. Something like that. So I think if they'd have waited, Vieira would have comfortably kept them safe. However, credit where credit's due. Roy Hodgson knows this squad of players, and he did what was needed of him. It's going to be interesting to see whether he does stay in charge for next season. You know, he did retire, but he did come back for this job. Will he stay? Has he still got the football bug? I'd love to see him stay, but Palace fans, would you prefer him to stay or like a new long-term project under a different manager? And in 10th place, a big shock, overachieving Fulham. The team that normally goes straight down after coming up. They've managed to not only stay in the division, but put together a brilliant season. Some parts of it, they look like they could challenge for European places. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition, but that was never their goal. Their goal was to survive, and they did much more than that. They managed to get a player like Willian, who obviously was brilliant at Chelsea, but after his Chelsea stint, played in Brazil, played for Arsenal, didn't really look good for in either of those scenarios. Fulham revitalised him, and he looked so good for them. He was so deadly. And they've got a brilliant midfielder in João Palhinha. What a class player. And I can see if Fulham are to struggle next season, Palhinha will be on the way out. I don't think that's a surprise. And I think a lot of Fulham fans will be ready for that to happen once they start to struggle. But Fulham, I had them 19th. And unlike Bournemouth, I think this was a bit of an unfair prediction. Fulham absolutely smashed the Championship last season, scoring so many goals, Mitrovic on fire. They invested well in the summer. Bournemouth obviously got automatic promotion, but didn't invest too well in the summer, to me. And they didn't really smash the Championship. It was just the case of there weren't too many teams fighting. It was quite a weak season where Fulham just ran away with it, and then there were a couple of teams that were decent enough to be up there. But Fulham, I apologise to the Fulham fans. I shouldn't have snubbed you at the start of the season. I would never have predicted you 10th, but maybe I should have been more generous and considered you to survive. Will you manage to survive next season? I'm sure there'll be a drop-off, but if you carry on keeping these players and playing the way you are under Marco Silva, I've got a feeling you will be able to survive again. In 9th place were Brentford. I had them 14th, and I'll be honest, I haven't looked back at my video. I don't know what my reasons were, but I think that was slightly harsh. Brentford are a very good side under Thomas Frank. Ivan Toney banging in the goals yet again. Obviously, there's a lot going on with him now. He's not going to be able to play until the new year. So a long, long wait for him. But they are good. They've provided some brilliant results last year. And I'm just excited to see where they can go, really. They always perform against the top sides. They're very, very good at home. Very hard to beat. And they were the only side to do the double over champions Man City. They won on the last day. Man City did have a heavily rotated squad, but they were the only side to win at the Etihad this season. So well done to Brentford. A very good season, a top half finish, and I'm excited to see where you are next year. In 8th place and missing out on Europe, Spurs. This was a strange season because at one point they were fighting with Man United and Newcastle for a top 4 spot, and now no Europe whatsoever. They capitulated at the back end of the season. Harry Kane, however, scored 30 goals. A brilliant season. That would win you the Golden Boot in the majority of seasons. But Haaland was in the league, unfortunately, for Kane. And Haaland smashed it. I will throw a question to you that I have seen a lot though. Who had a more impressive season? Kane for Spurs or Haaland for Man City? Just based on the goals that they scored. It's a difficult one to answer, and I'll leave it to you. Spurs, I predicted them in 3rd place. A very, very poor prediction looking back at it, but hindsight is a beautiful thing. And at the start of the season, my reasons were they were brilliant last year under Conte. Kulusevski, Kane, Son were absolutely smashing it. To be honest, they were the most exciting attack towards the back end of last season in the league. They were so good, scoring so many goals. And they didn't look like they were going to slow down. However, this season they did. Conte, his relationship broke down with pretty much everyone at the club. And then it was a bit of a mess from there. It's going to be interesting to see how they bounce back. No Europe this next season could do them a world of good. Arsenal just had no Europe and then went on to provide a brilliant title race and end up with a Champions League spot. Can Spurs bounce back in similar fashion? The club isn't looking very stable at the moment. Talks over the ownership with the fans not happy. No manager. Kane could be going. There's a lot of questions, so it's going to be tough for Spurs, but they'll be hoping to at least achieve Europe next season. In 7th place and getting a Europa Conference League spot, Aston Villa. Now, this was a shock for me. I had them in 12th place. I thought, they'd just be hanging around mid-table. And to be honest, this season was broken into two. Under Gerrard, they were possibly heading for relegation. They were so poor under him. If they'd have kept him for the whole season, I'm not too confident that they would have stayed in the league. That's not just me as a Blues fan. I know a lot of Villa fans have said that themselves. They were sleepwalking towards relegation, at least a relegation battle. But Villa, fair play to them. They acted on it very swiftly. They bring in Unai Emery. What an appointment that is for a team that were lingering around the relegation zone, to bring in a manager who's managed some top sides, PSG, Arsenal, managed in Italy, and also Unai Emery is very good in European competitions, winning the Europa League with Sevilla and always getting them into a good Champions League spot. Emery is a brilliant manager, and he is the man behind Villa's great season, because he took them on a 10-game unbeaten run, made them very hard to beat, made Tyrone Mings look like he can actually defend, which is a very tough task. So, Emery, well done. Villa, unfortunately, I have to say, well done to you as well. A great season for them. Will they struggle next season, balancing out playing on Thursday nights with all the league fixtures? I'm not sure. It's going to be an interesting dynamic. They are going to, however, strengthen in the summer. They are spending the money and backing the manager. So, to be honest, I think Villa will be a top half side for seasons to come. Good season from Villa, 7th place. Now in 6th place, we've got Brighton. An even more impressive season. I had them in 11th, so again, I predicted them one place above Villa. They finished one place above Villa. But Europa League football for Brighton next season, and the way they have done it is so great. Their club is the best ranked club in the Premier League in terms of spend, and making profit. They don't pay astronomical fees for anybody, and they end up selling them for astronomical fees at the end of the process. Brighton, they keep getting these gems that no one's really heard of. They are hidden gems from South America, and it's working so well. Breakout players this season, Enciso, Buonanotte had quite a few good appearances for them. And then Estupinian, brilliant signing from them that, yes, people had heard of him, but this season, I saw a lot of people saying he was the best left back in the Premier League, and I think that's hard to argue with, to be honest, because there's not too many, big names really floating about there that had better seasons at left back. And then they've got Evan Ferguson as well, a brilliant young striker who really, he could go on and be such a good player. He's got plenty of potential, and he's at the right sort of club to nurture him under a brilliant manager. Originally, Brighton under Graham Potter. He went to Chelsea. De Zerbi comes in, and a lot of people expected to drop off. They did struggle to win games in their first 4-5, but once he got that first win, they were absolutely flying. Such a hard team to beat. Brilliant at the Amex, and I really enjoyed watching Brighton this season. In fact, I think they were my favourite Premier League side this season. The story was brilliant for them, and it's a Europa League spot next season. However, same question as I asked about Villa. How are they going to cope with Thursday night football and Premier League? They're going to have to do a lot of balancing. There will be some outgoings. Alexis McAllister is reportedly having a medical at Liverpool this week, so he may be going. Saicedo, there's a lot of rumours about him as he's a brilliant, brilliant player. So are they going to be able to pick some young players up again from, South America and the likes and, keep building? Or are they going to struggle to replace these players? Will these players leave? Or will they buy into the Brighton project? That's something I'm going to look at in a separate video. Brighton, brilliant season. We'll take a look at it and figure out why they have been so good. But for now, Brighton, 6th place, Europa League. And in 5th place, missing out on Champions League football, it's Liverpool. Now this was a big surprise. Many people expected them to be in a title race with Man City as usual. I had them 1 and 2 and I had Man City to come out on top. There is a bit of a spoiler there, but I'm sure to you it's not a surprise. Now, Liverpool, they struggled at the start of the season. Everyone was wondering whether it was Klopp's 7-year curse and whether it was just going to go so poorly that he would end up leaving at the end of this season. But he did pull it back towards the end. They were brilliant. I think 12 or 13 games unbeaten at the end of the season with many, many wins in there. So they really did claw it back. They did everything in their power, but it just wasn't enough. It didn't make up for such a poor start. They were floating around mid-table around the World Cup, so they really struggled. And they have signed some big players. Nunes, Gakpo coming in attack. Firmino obviously on the way out. Mane has already left, so there's been changes in the attack. But everybody knows that Liverpool need midfielders. The fact that they went into this season without signing a midfielder was crazy. They ended up with Arthur from Barcelona, Juventus. Juventus. He's been floating around so many places and not playing. I forgot where he was from. Juventus didn't end up doing anything really. I think he featured for about 14 minutes or something, and it was a very poor 14 minutes. So Arthur didn't work out. The midfield was very poor, and that's where they need to strengthen in the summer. However, Klopp has identified this. They're pretty close by the looks of it to getting Alexis McAllister, which is a brilliant signing. They just could do with someone else in the midfield as well. And I'm sure they will be back to challenging next season and fighting for the league. Liverpool missed out on Champions League in 5th place. And now in 4th place with a Champions League spot, it's Newcastle. What a brilliant story this was. I'm going to go into it because I know a lot of people are going to talk about the money. I had them in 7th place, so I thought they'd do well. Howe did a good job last season after taking over from Steve Bruce. And it was quite difficult to predict how it was going to go this season, but it went terrifically. Eddie Howe did a brilliant, brilliant job getting Newcastle in the top 4. What a season. A season to remember. And it means Tuesdays and Wednesdays, they'll be hearing that beautiful Champions League anthem, which I'm sure they have missed. Now, Newcastle, the money, a lot of people will question whether it's really kind of fair. They've got a lot of money behind them, richest club in the world now, but they didn't spend too much. If you look at Newcastle, they didn't spend what Chelsea spent. They didn't spend what Villa and Liverpool and Man United have been spending over the last few seasons. Yes, Newcastle are playing catch-up, but I believe 6 of the 11 first names on the team sheet were actually there last season under Steve Bruce and just not playing very well. You look at the likes of Joe Linton. He was a striker that they brought in, didn't work, and then ended up playing centre mid under Eddie Howe, and he has been a revelation this season. And then even Jacob Murphy, he looked very, very good when he featured under Eddie Howe. Callum Wilson's had a great season. Alexander Isak, what a signing. The main thing for Newcastle was defensively. Best defence in the league. I'm not saying that as individuals, I'm saying as a collective, they conceded the least goals. So very, very good defensively from Newcastle. Kieran Trippier, what a signing that was. Botman was linked to a lot of top European clubs, came to Newcastle because he believed in the project, and it worked out. And they've got a brilliant base. They just now need to get a few more additions in this summer ahead of their Champions League campaign next season. A great season from Newcastle, and they finished in 4th place. In 3rd place, we've got Man United. I had them 6th this season, so not a great prediction from me. The reasons were uncertainty around the manager, as he is not proven in the Premier League. Erik ten Hag has only really been at Ajax, and although he did a good job there, they always seem to win the league. However, looking now at the end of the season, at the season that Ajax just had, it's clear to tell that Ten Hag was a big part of that success. And the other thing was obviously Ronaldo leaving, being under Rangnick last season, where they were very, very poor. There were just a lot of factors that seemed like they were going in the wrong direction. But Erik ten Hag proved himself this season. 3rd place finish, winning the Carabao Cup. And now it's going to be interesting to see what their aspirations are. The board have always been criticised, even though they do spend a lot of money, but the investment hasn't always been correct. Poor signings a lot of the time. However, Casemiro and Martinez coming in as defensive mid and a centre-back to partner Varane. That three, when they play, they don't concede many goals. And that showed because David De Gea picked up the Golden Glove and they were very good defensively, very good at home when they had those three players. They also picked up Anthony, who had an okay first season. He will be hoping that he sort of pushes on next year, but I've seen a lot of potential there. I'm sure he will come into his own next year. It's going to be interesting to see what they do in the summer transfer window, though. They need a striker. That is clear to see. They are linked with Kane and Osimhen, but Man United every summer are always linked with every player on the face of the earth. They're probably going to be linked with big Lukas Jutkovic next, but you can't have him. He is a Blues player. But yeah, Man United, they are going to need a striker. They're probably going to need another centre mid and maybe a left back, maybe a right back. It's going to be an interesting summer. Man United, very well in 3rd. I had them 6th, so not a great prediction from me. In 2nd place, runners-up, and for most of the season, the leaders of the title race, Arsenal. A great season for them. I had them in 4th place, so I did believe in them to get a Champions League spot. Not many people did, but they went one further. Yes, they only come out of the season with a Champions League spot, but they really pushed Man City the whole way. And the most interesting thing I find about this is they have the 2nd youngest squad in the Championship. Southampton were the youngest, didn't work out for them, but Arsenal, 2nd youngest squad, and they go and finish 2nd in the league, pushing City the whole way and leading for most of the season. So Arsenal, for years to come, will still have that as long as they can keep hold of their players. They obviously are going to strengthen their side as well. Brilliant season from Arsenal. Will be in the Champions League next season. And, they've got some great players. They invested well in the summer. That's why I had them in the Champions League. Zinchenko and Jesus coming in. Very, very good signings. And they just look so different to the Arsenal we've seen recently. Arteta's done a brilliant job for them. And to be honest, I fancy them to be a Champions League side for years to come. Will they be able to keep up pushing for the title? I'm not sure. Now, a lot of people said that they bottled it when they didn't win the league. I think that's a bit harsh because if you look pre-season, most people didn't think they'd get Champions League. So if you're looking from the start of the season, they overachieved, but it was in their hands. They didn't even need to beat City. They could afford to lose to City in both games, but as long as they won their other games, they would win the league. So they did really drop the ball. They had a poor run of form towards the back end of the season, but we'll see how they get on next year. I'm sure they'll be challenging again. Which leaves the champions, Man City, the second correct prediction of the season for me. Forest and City were the two sides that I put in the correct position. City wasn't a hard one to guess. It felt like a given. It felt more like a spoiler than a prediction. They are so good. They reinvent themselves every single year. They always come up with a new way of playing. Pep Guardiola is a genius. That's 3 in a row now. He has managed to do 3 in a row in 3 different leagues. I'd run out of superlatives for the man. He's such a good manager. He's also won the FA Cup and he's in the Champions League final this coming Saturday. Will he do the treble? It's a feat that has only been achieved once in Premier League history by Man United. Can Man City and Pep Guardiola complete the treble? Inter Milan are standing in their way. I think they do it. I think they cap off a brilliant season with a treble and a Champions League, their first Champions League trophy. Haaland has been a massive factor this season. So many goals, breaking the record for goals in a season in the league. Just incredible. And he has just changed the way this side play. Everyone was so used to them passing so much before scoring and getting a brilliant ball through. Haaland gives you a completely different way of playing. A midfielder sees him on the shoulder of a defender and his acceleration is brilliant, his speed and strength, something else. So 9 times out of 10, if your pass is good enough, he will make the most of it. That's why he scores so many goals. He's also very good in the air. I'm not too sure what his weakness is because he seems to be able to pass and dribble as well. So yeah, he is an absolute robot. He's been brilliant. City have been great. They have changed the way they've played with 3 centre-backs, 2 centre-mids, 4 in front of them, and then a striker. It's a 3-2-4-1. Very interesting. Only Pep could come up with it, and probably only Pep could make it work. Will they cap off the season with the Champions League and the treble? Let me know in the comments. What a season for City. They take the Premier League trophy. So, those were the reactions to my Premier League predictions all the way back at the start of the season. I got 2 correct, Man City and Nottingham Forest. There were a lot of surprises this year. Leicester and Chelsea and Liverpool can be thrown into that, underperforming. And so many teams seem to do so much better than expected. Fulham, Bournemouth, Villa, Brighton, Newcastle, they all flew. And, fair play to the sides. They did such a good job. This will be coming next year as well. I will do my predictions. Hopefully I can get more than 2, but it is very difficult. So, thank you very much for watching, and there will be plenty of content on the way.